All right, so this guy, new guy on the scene, Don Lemon, up and coming new YouTuber, trying to get his career off the ground. Just got 15,000 subs right now, so go give his channel a view and a sub. This interview here, obviously, there's some news about it, discussion about it. There wasn't anything super crazy in it that I saw, just some kind of screening it. It's pretty milquetoast compared to some of the other interviews and other public things that Elon has done. Just nothing too crazy that got leaked or talked about, especially like in the first little bit. It's pretty boring. Elon is pretty difficult to listen to. It's hard to listen to him talk. But I think I will probably start around content moderation right here.
In it. Do you think if you moderated yourself more, if there was better content moderation on the platform, that you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the great replacement theory as it relates
I
to
don't have
Democrats,
to answer these questions.
great replacement theory as it relates to Jewish people? Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it. Otherwise, I would not do this interview.
So you don't think do you think that you wouldn't get in trouble, or you wouldn't be criticized for these things?
I'm
or
criticized
that
constantly. I could care less.
you don't care?
No, I don't.
Why
care.
not?
I don't think people should care what the media thinks about them. They're terrible judges of character.
All right, I think that should be good. All right, yeah. So he's definitely shown time and time again that he absolutely cares what journalists and the media says and thinks about him. He showed himself to be an absolute snowflake in this interview, which Don Lemon goes on to talk about to other journalists later on. This is just blatantly and obviously untrue.
Biggest social media and biggest information platforms in the world. You don't care? You don't think that you have any X.com or you have any responsibility to the truth or moderating the platform?
You're conflating the truth with the media, and I think the media is not truthful.
Well, not with just the media. I mean, just the truth in general.
I care about the truth very much. That's why we have, for example, community notes on the X system, where in order for a community note to surface and provide corrective information about what somebody posts, and my posts are equally subject to this. I've been community noted many times. In order for a community note to surface, people who have historically disagreed must agree in order for a community note to surface. And all of the code for community notes is open source. All of the data is open source, so you can completely recreate it from scratch. The way to build trust is transparency.
I have noticed community notes. I think that you are right about that, and I do think community notes are helpful. I think any type of content moderation, I do think that's helpful. You recently called content moderation, though, a digital chastity belt. Do you think that you believe that X and you have some responsibility to moderate hate speech on the platform?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and we have a responsibility to be transparent about when things are shown, why they're shown. That's why we open source our algorithm. I think once you start going beyond the law, now you're putting your thumb on the scale. And we don't want to put our thumb on the scale.
It doesn't concern you that hate speech has gone. Research shows that it's gone up on the platform since you took over. That's not concerning to you?
I believe that is false. In fact, the research that I've seen says it went down.
The study from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue found that anti-Semitic tweets doubled from June 22 to February 2023. One study reported that as many as 86% of the posts reported for hateful content remained up after being reported. Hate speech on the platform is up.
So what they will typically do is they will count the number of posts, but not count the number of views. So what matters is, was that post given high visibility, or what did like one person see it? And if you look at the number of views of how many times was hate content viewed on our platform, it is down substantially.
Yeah. Well, was what the study.
I mean, that wouldn't necessarily be a positive correlation. Like, views could be down overall.
And you said you like transparency. I'm going to show you this, and
Don, you can get a study that will tell you whatever you want.
But these are just a handful of extremely. If you look at those anti-Semitic and racist tropes and tweets. And as of this morning, they're still on X. And from your own content policy, these posts should have been deleted. So why haven't they been deleted? Why are they still there? Did you?
We delete things if they are illegal.
But these have been up there for a while.
Are they illegal?
They're not illegal, but they're hateful, and they can lead to violence. As I just read to you, the shooters, you know, in all of these mass shootings, attributed social media to radicalizing.
So Don, you love censorship, is what you're saying?
No, I don't love censorship.
Then why are you asking?
I believe in moderation, but I don't believe in
censorship. Moderation is a propaganda word for censorship.
But don't you think free speech is one thing, right? Or not, you know.
Look, if something's illegal, we're going to take it down.
Like at the end of the day, part of free speech is Elon's right and Twitter's right, whatever social media platform's right to moderate how they want to moderate, so long as they're operating within the law, of course. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a supposed free speech absolutist, as Elon claims to be, then you're going to lose advertisers. You're not going to be very profitable as a company, as is being shown. And so, just from a business standpoint, it just makes sense to moderate your site in such a way that it doesn't become just a cesspool of disgusting hate. And I think it's very valuable to have a lot of leeway when it comes to, you know, speech that you allow on a platform, but like some things are just like, they don't need to be there. They deserve to live on 9chan or, you know, the deepest parts of Reddit. Nobody is like saying you can't say these things or put these on the internet, but you know, you don't have to be the one to host it and say, come here and you can say whatever you want on our platform.
If it's not illegal, then we're putting our thumb on the scale and we're being censors.
But and also this just rings hollow because of the people that Elon has banned or from the platform that have really done nothing wrong besides be like journalists or mock or insult him. It just...
You're putting your thumb on the scale for moderating hate speech. I mean, you don't put out child pornography. That's not...
It's illegal.
Some people would say that's considered censorship. I'm just saying, you...
No, I literally, Don, you know, I literally said, if something is legal, okay, we will obviously remove it.
Okay.
But if it is not legal, the laws in this country are put forward by the citizens. We're a democracy. If those laws are put in place by the people, we adhere to those laws.
Okay, I
agree.
agree.
To the laws of others. If you go beyond the law, you're actually going beyond the will of the people.
Okay, agreed with the law. But if you are doing something that promotes hate and violence and ultimately leads to killing, you don't feel you have any responsibility not to do that? When the people who are doing it admittedly are saying...
There's articles all the time that lead to violence and killing. Don't they? Shouldn't they? Like, you're applying a differential standard to...
But that would never be in mainstream media. These types of images, that type of language, those things would never be... when I was in mainstream media, we'd never promote things that would be anti-Semitic. We would never promote things that would...
Anti-Semitic either.
Did you not see those?
You said promote. If content is on the platform, that doesn't mean we promote it.
But that wouldn't be on a platform for mainstream media at all.
No, but you can think of that's because the mainstream media has like, whatever, 20 articles a day. We have 500 million posts a day.
Okay,
500
understood.
million.
Does it bother you? How do you feel about that when you see it?
I obviously disagree with that. I think it's not good at all. It's terrible.
But you don't want to get rid of it on the platform, or at least moderate it.
The rules, what you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is, that I guess have a disagreement, because I do not believe in censorship that goes beyond the law, and you do. We have a difference of opinion in that regard.
I understand that, but these are your own rules on your own platform. These go against.
That's true. Like if that's the way it's going to be, like update your policies. Update your policies, because if people are seeing this stuff and feeling uncomfortable and reporting it and nothing is happening, it would be good to know that, like, hey, I just need to leave because their policy now is that whatever is fine.
So the rules on your platform. That's why I'm asking you. If you said, listen, we allow everything, but that's not what your content rules say, and that's why I'm asking you, why are they still there? Your own content policy. That's why I'm asking you that, not because.
Which part of our content policy says that we should delete these things?
Your content policy talks about hate speech.
Yes, we don't promote hate speech.
And so you don't consider that hate speech?
I guess you're not understanding what I'm saying.
Like, he's just coming off like a triggered snowflake. Like, there's like a perfectly logical or fine argument to be made for free speech absolutism, and they can disagree on it, but like, just make that point and leave it at that.
There's if there's you can find, like, you can sign up right now and
like, it makes it seem like he doesn't really like he doesn't want to say it with his chest. He knows that it's not like a popular position.
Do 100 things that are hateful, but if nobody reads it, it doesn't matter. So you can think of X as being, it's much like the internet. It's not some tiny publication with like 20 articles a day. It's 500 million.
But everyone has the opportunity to read it, Elon.
Everyone has the opportunity to read the internet. Are you suggesting we should shut down the internet?
No, but you don't own the internet. I'm asking you about you and your responsibility on your platform. And so I see how you feel now. You don't agree. We don't agree on this.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I want responsibility. I think there.
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship.
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true.
I think pretty much everyone wants some level of censorship, obviously. It just depends on how much. Even these free speech absolutist people, they agree with censorship to a degree, even if it's just with what's in the legal bounds. So that there's nothing wrong with censoring speech. People like to liken Twitter to a town square, but it's just not that, really. It's still just a bulletin board on someone's private property that they have allowed the public to come and post whatever, or post what they want on it for the public to see. And at the end of the day, it's their choice what they want to allow on there, to leave up, to take down, to add context to, whatever they want. If they want to, before Elon bought it, if Twitter wanted to kick every single conservative off the platform, they were fully within their right to do so. It probably would have been very unpopular, would have killed the company, but there's just nothing wrong with that. It's their choice. And this is his choice. And it is making Twitter unbearable and unprofitable. So
it's not true. I think that there's right and wrong. And I think I think that when you have a platform that's as big as yours and as powerful as yours and as influential as yours, and you are a person of consequence to the world with what you do, that there is a certain responsibility that goes along with what you have on your platform and what you put out to the world. And I think that's important. You don't see that responsibility?
I think we have a responsibility to adhere to the law, and if people want the law changed, they should talk to their elected representative and get the law changed, and then we will adhere to the law.
Okay.
But if you want us to go beyond the law, that is us deciding to be censors.
So,
And I'm against censorship. I'm in favor of freedom of speech.
yeah.
And freedom of speech only is relevant when people you don't like say things you don't like. Otherwise, it has no meaning.
But I do think that there should be guardrails. And I believe in free speech as much as you. I would fight. I don't disagree. I don't agree with a lot of what you put out on social media, but I will fight for your right to be able to say it.
Great.
Okay, so listen, let's talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, that's been a target of yours lately on X. There was a repost of Ben Shapiro that you claim that DEI is killing people. Specifically, you point to medicine. You claim that DEI programs are putting people at risk. Do you really believe this to be true? And what evidence do you have to support it?
What I was referring to there was that if we lower the standards for doctors, such so that they, if the test for a doctor is lowered, then the probability of them making a mistake and killing someone is obviously going to be higher.
Wait, say that again. I'm not sure I understand what you said. I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Yes, if the standards for passing medical exams and becoming a doctor, or especially something like a surgeon, if the standards are lowered, then the probability that the surgeon will make a mistake is higher.
So the thing about this whole narrative is that there's no evidence for this, that this is happening, that standards are being lowered. But people like Elon, people kind of at the top of discourse, pundits, political people, they can kind of pose these questions or pose these fears in people, and then that becomes the truth to the general masses. People believe that standards are being lowered for surgeons, for doctors, for airplane pilots, etc. And that becomes the narrative, not what DEI actually is or what its goals are. It's just an attempt to frame this false narrative around it, to build up fear around it. And this is just like a staple of what the right does around these kinds of issues.
Making mistakes in their exam, they may make mistakes with people, and that may result in people dying.
What evidence do you have, though, that they're lowering the standards? There's no evidence of that.
I believe there is.
There is not.
There's no evidence of that, Elon. What is the evidence?
I believe they have literally lowered the standards at Duke University, and that is what the article was.
And it's the thing, too, like these people will confidently say these kinds of things on Twitter. But I feel like everybody who gives like hot takes or any kind of take at all, like it would just be such a better world if we could immediately, or they would immediately be forced to give their sources or more of their reasoning, because this is obviously an important issue for him. He talks about this a lot on Twitter. But when asked about it blankly, and what is your evidence? There's nothing there. And he can't really articulate the logic behind it. It's just a talking point. It's just this irrational fear.
Was referring to.
There's no evidence.
Saying they have not lowered the standards?
There's no evidence about lowering standards, and I think that there is.
Leave that as a false statement you're making.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
I think.
Like, he should be able to say that is a false statement. This article here shows boom, boom, boom. These were the standards that were lowered. This instance here, this company, this school, this is where standards were obviously lowered, and he just doesn't have that.
Thing is, when this is posted on the X platform, there will be a whole bunch of things that rebut what you said and what I said,
right.
And so people can then make their own decision based on the replies and the rebuttals and the community notes.
I think that's fair, but I do think that.
Yeah, so like he just gets to say whatever he wants and then expect the fact checkers to back him up. But nobody's really going to look at the fact checks. Because I just saw before starting this stream that Fox News posted about this and posted a tweet from End Wokeness on Twitter. And basically they said the narrative was that Don Lemon can't comprehend how people might be harmed by lower standards. And we're going to watch this together. You're going to see that is clearly not what happened. That is not what happened at all. And that's not what Don is contesting. He's contesting there was no evidence that it is happening. He does say if that did happen, that would be bad. But the narrative already for conservatives, for Fox News, is that Don is just like this dumb liberal who can't understand why lowering standards is a bad thing. They're already assuming that it's happening. That's just a given. But it's Don who is just dumb and doesn't understand why that's a bad thing. And so that's why it's important to be precise when you are this much of a public figure with the things that you put out in the world. That's why you can't talk about great replacement theory stuff without people fully understanding the dog whistle that is and going straight into racism and anti-Semitism. The same with the transgender stuff that he talks about, with the woke mind virus stuff that he talks about. And he knows it. He's not dumb. He's not dumb.
That on this particular topic, I do think that you and Ben Shapiro are reaching in about this, because there was what Ben posted said that he gave instances of people who were deliberately harming people. Nowhere in the thread does Ben suggest at all, I should say, that anyone is being killed as a result of DEI.
Yeah, so even like his own source of like Ben Shapiro never said that. That's not what he said. So you have Ben Shapiro kind of massaging this narrative with real things that are happening. And then you have Elon taking that and intentionally or unintentionally misunderstanding that and massaging a more extreme narrative, an even more untrue narrative. And then you have, this all trickles down. Then you have all the people under him, all the people that follow him, all of his D-writers. They then take that and go even more extreme with it, even more unfactual with it. And it is just so dangerous.
That's purely speculative. There's research on DEI and medicine, and there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, that DEI is affecting medicine. Actually, like only 5% of doctors are black, and a small percent.
Yeah, I think you'll find that when this is posted to the X platform, that people will reply to it with evidence.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see.
Okay. So, but that's my whole thing about moderation.
When it comes to DEI, though, I think there is some wacky stuff that kind of goes on. And a lot of it, I think, is some people have figured out that they can kind of package these seminars and these like consulting agencies and stuff to make pitches to these companies to then come in and like teach their employees about stuff. And it's like not really well thought out. It's kind of just surface level stuff. It's kind of silly. And they do it because they can make money off of it. And the companies hire these people so that they look good, like they're being diverse. And a lot of times actual diversity and inclusion and equity is not really happening. But there are a lot of companies that are making genuine efforts towards that. And a lot of times it's just these companies saying, hey, like, let's look at maybe where we might have some blind spots, where we might have some prejudices, and work on that. Because the studies overwhelmingly show that more diverse companies perform better and are more profitable and more creative, more innovative, all that. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a good thing, just empirically and non-empirically, just for humanity.
maybe you're wrong, but you'll put it out there. You don't know if it's right. Do you think that you have a responsibility to make sure something is right before you, the person who owns it, Elon Musk, who's a huge figure in the world, that you should know that it's true, that there are people at X who can get research for you before you put something out there like that's not necessarily true, even in other examples?
Like he doesn't even, like it just takes like a 2-second Google search to see that this is not true. Like he doesn't need researchers. And if you're just going to say something like that so confidently in an interview that I have to know that he knew it was going to be somewhat contentious. Why not be prepared for that?
If I say something that is inaccurate, I'm immediately corrected on the platform. That's the advantage of a real-time system like X. So there will be immediately in the replies, people correcting me. There will be a community note that will correct me, which is attached to the actual post itself.
Do you think as many people read
Yes.
You think as many people read that as it reads your tweet?
Yes, in fact, and if there's a community note that happens later that where somebody didn't see, but they replied to that or interacted with that post, we will notify them that there is now a community note correcting that post.
Just so you.
Whereas if you consider the conventional media, that doesn't happen. Conventional media makes false statements all the time and nobody ever hears the correction.
When I was in conventional media, I can only speak for myself.
So generally, like the vast majority of the time, things that need to be corrected in mainstream media news is going to be very minor things. Typically, the information is very well vetted before it gets posted to the public. And I think that's like a big difference there, is that they take great care to make sure that what they're saying is truthful. And I think especially someone who has as much visibility as Elon does has pretty much just as much responsibility to ensure that the things that he is putting out there is factual or truthful, and to consider the impact that what he says has on the people that he follows. And so he obviously would not accept media companies putting stuff out with the same reckless abandon that he does, and then just saying, well, you know, people will correct it in post. We don't have to worry about that. We can just say whatever, and then people come along and fact check us. Like he obviously would not accept that for mainstream news companies, but that's kind of the example that he's trying to draw.
If I got something wrong, if someone got something wrong on the platform that I was on, it was corrected, and we made sure that it was corrected. Now, I can't speak for anyone else.
I don't think that's a universal situation.
Okay. So I just the research. So when you talk, do you believe that people are dying because medical standards, DEI?
But like, obviously he has a problem with news agencies saying things that aren't true. So like, why? It's just a whataboutism.
Is causing medical standards to be lowered. Do you actually believe people are dying because of that?
I believe that if we lower the standards for what it takes to become a doctor.
You're saying if we lower the standards,
yes.
But do you believe people are dying because the standards are being lowered?
I don't think that is yet an issue, but it could become an issue.
Okay, but
yeah, again, like he's just fear mongering, and it doesn't compute to his following, to conservatives, that this is just not happening. Like there's no push for this, but that's the narrative that they've created.
The actual evidence in history shows the exact opposite. If you look,
and so that's what gets focused on instead of good parts of DEI, or making sure that it does stay good and actually creates diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're going to focus on this other part that is not true and is not happening.
Look at how minorities are treated by the medical system. Most doctors now are white, and there are lots of mistakes in medicine. So you're saying that white doctors have bad medical care? I'm trying to understand your logic here when it comes to DEI, because there's no actual evidence of what you're saying.
No, I said, so if the standards, like let's say...
also, like the implication that that the only way that we could include minorities, women, people of color is to lower the standards for them is really disgusting. Really disgusting. And I don't know if he's really thought about the implications of that position or what, but
I think that particular thing was referring to surgeons. Let's say a surgeon is asked to, a surgeon in training is asked to do a series of operations under the supervision of a senior surgeon, and they get a bunch of those operations wrong. If that happens, and yet they are still approved to be a surgeon, the probability that someone will die, I think, at some point is high.
Okay, I understand that, but that's a hypothetical. That doesn't mean it's happening.
I didn't say it's happening.
You didn't say it was happening.
I said it will. I said if we lower standards, people will die.
But why respond to something or put something out there?
and so see, this is like, again, people see this and they think like, oh, Elon is, I mean, this is obvious. Like, yeah, that's going to happen. And they see Don laughing and they're like, oh, he's just dumb. He doesn't get it. But it's no, like, it's that this is not happening. This is just like a total hypothetical that Don would agree with. And like, Elon just doesn't, it doesn't compute with him.
That has not happened, because I could say,
Because I don't want it to happen. I think we don't want to lower standards.
okay, if you look at the history of the medical industry, especially when it comes to Black Americans, it shows the exact opposite. If you look at the Tuskegee experiment and on, only 5% of doctors in America are Black. All of them are white. So are you saying that if the majority of doctors are white, are you saying that and there are still these inequities, right? And there's still mistakes. Are you blaming DEI for that?
No, I'm very basically saying that if we lower standards for what it takes to become a board-certified surgeon or, an oncologist or something where the kind of disease we're talking about, if you make a mistake, causes someone to die, then more people will die than if we don't lower the standards. Therefore, we should not lower the standards.
But why do you think they're lowering the
Right. So like the goal of DEI is not to help more unqualified people be able to become doctors, surgeons, pilots, what have you. That's not the goal. The goal is to get qualified people who may be overlooked for other reasons or may not have the opportunity financially, whatever it may be, to get the kind of education that would help them get to that place, even though they're, fully smart, fully capable of fulfilling that role. For whatever reason, they just don't have as much of a chance of an opportunity to get into that role. And there's just so many different reasons that could happen. It's not just, companies being racist and not wanting to hire minorities. There's just a vast array of reasons why. And there's nothing wrong with companies being mindful of that, with schools being mindful of that, and offering help in financial ways, in consideration, etc., to people who are fully qualified for these positions and roles.
standards for minority doctors or women doctors, or
That's what that's what that article suggested. Yes, at Duke University.
okay. The evidence that I have shows that that's not true.
Okay.
So listen,
So the only thing I could find from Duke University on this was basically that they were going to offer more financial assistance to minorities, maybe. I can't remember what it was. Basically, it's just financial aid. That's pretty much it.
after the door blew off this mid-flight, this Alaskan Airlines flight, do you remember that? You responded to a post claiming that the average HBCU grad was less intelligent than the average airline pilot, and stated that it will take an airplane crashing and killing hundreds of people for them to change this crazy policy of DIE. I don't know if did you misspell it on purpose, which it should be DEI. Do you believe that women...
So Boeing, as a shitty company who does not care about people's safety and only cares about money, is now being shown to this whistleblower that was just unalived, to be overlooking a lot of safety precautions and not manufacturing correctly. So that's what happened with this door. And the pilot, by the way, a woman, landed the plane safely. But then someone like Elon can take that and just craft this entire narrative about how diversity, equity, and inclusion is going to kill people. Make it make sense.
And minority pilots are inherently less intelligent and less skilled than white male pilots.
No, I'm just saying that we should not lower the standards for them.
Okay.
But why, like, again, he doesn't get like the implications of that. Why would you need to? Nobody's talking about doing that. Why would you need to, Elon?
But there's no evidence that standards are being lowered when it comes to the airline industry.
You've repeatedly said that there's no evidence that standards are being lowered, and watch the replies showing all the evidence that it is.
Replies, though, on social media or on Twitter are not necessarily fact and evidence.
No,
that's people's
they
opinion.
will cite
Like, again, like, just have one example on hand to show. It would not be that hard if it was true. I tried to search before this. There's no evidence of this at all anywhere. But it doesn't matter because he's already created this narrative, and the people that love him and follow him are not. They're already fully bought into the narrative themselves, whether Elon is talking about it or not.
In the replies to this, you will see how often the information is cited showing that indeed there are significant cases where standards are lowered.
And I do hope that happens. I do hope that happens, and I look forward to it. And as you said, if you're wrong, then you're wrong, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yes.
Okay. So and I'm glad we're having this conversation, debating. This is what we should be doing, debating the issue. So if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and then they'll be proven in the thing, and you as well. But I just want to tell you that pilot that you talked about, in fact, was a woman pilot, landed the plane safely despite the major malfunction with the equipment. Boeing has taken responsibility for that incident, saying that it was caused by a faulty door panel. So I'm not sure what that had to do with lowering the standards for pilots when it was a faulty...
No, it's not lowering standards for pilots. It's the incentive structure, I believe, at Boeing changed to include DEI as a fundamental executive incentive. But in my view, it should be purely about passenger safety.
Okay, but do you understand how by saying just that standards are being lowered, that you're implying that they're being lowered because people are less skilled and less intelligent, and you're talking about people of color and or women?
Look, I'm saying we should not lower standards.
But you don't...
That's it.
I think everyone can agree.
Like, it's the inability on his part to hear what Don is saying and listen to his perspective as a black man, to learn from him about this issue, just really shows where he is at. And the goal here, I believe, is to maintain the status quo, to keep minorities, to keep women down, to keep them out of these traditionally white male spaces. The implication being that they don't belong there. because they're not smart enough, they're not skilled enough, they don't have what it takes to do this. And again, I don't know if Elon just hasn't thought through the implications of saying that, but he's obviously not interested in a different perspective that would illuminate that for him.
Agree that you shouldn't lower standards.
Great.
But you're implying that they're lowering standards because of people of color or women, because someone is not a white male. You're saying that they're less skilled and less intelligent. That's what
No,
you're
I'm
saying.
not saying that. I'm simply saying that they are.
Then why would they be lowering the standards?
I don't know. Why are they lowering the standards?
Just so you know, 5% of
They're not.
pilots are female, 4% are black. So you're talking about this widespread takeover of minorities and women when that's not actually true.
I'm not saying there's a
standards
widespread takeover.
Well, you're saying that the standards are being lowered because of certain people. And you don't believe in DEI, right? Do you not believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think we should be treat people according to their skills and their integrity, and that's it.
Do you know?
It's interesting that these people express a very, like, honestly radical viewpoint that we should abolish gender, essentially abolish race, ethnicity, and we should all just be these amorphous blobs of people with no differentiating factors. It's really frustrating to listen to people like this, listen to experiences from other people that are not like them, and say, yeah, we shouldn't really talk about that. You should just shut the fuck up and accept how things are. And, we're just going to treat everybody like humans. That would be great if that's what reality was. But that's not reality. And so the people that are talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion are talking about reality of what's happening. And people like Elon are just saying, shut the fuck up. I don't want to listen to it.
Know that studies show. Yeah, well, we can look them up.
Why is he scoffing at studies but relying on replies in Twitter to back up his claims?
So your reaction to studies show, and I understand, right? Because I always like to point to an exact study, right?
Sure.
Something that is factual. It's the same thing when you talk about, well, let's see what the replies are on Twitter or on X.
Yeah, so
I feel the same way about that. But this is what studies have shown, and people will reply and they'll say that companies with more diversity and their leadership teams have reported higher innovation rates than those with lower diversity or low diversity, and they're better companies and they make more money. This whole idea about DEI, if you go woke or whatever, you go broke, that's not necessarily true. People with diverse leadership teams and diverse workers make more money and more innovative.
Like I said, my view is that the only basis for promoting somebody should be their skills, talents, and their integrity, and that's it.
I want to ask you about, there's a federal government, EEOC, they are also currently involved in a lawsuit against Tesla that alleges that there's a history of widespread racial harassment against black Tesla employees, as well as a pattern of retaliation for speaking out.
I haven't heard of that, but that doesn't surprise me. I have seen other investigations and exposés on just kind of, in general, horrendous treatment by workers or of workers at Tesla, so that does not surprise me at all.
What do you say to that?
I don't believe that is true. I think we've got a very good, like if you walk around the Tesla Fremont plant, I think it's a very.
I think that I think something like this happens typically from the top down. It is typically a culture that is created from the top down. And I think it can happen on its own in smaller pockets of a company, but especially one as large as Tesla. Um, there's just no reason to not like put safeguards in place all throughout the company for things like this. There's just no reason for this to be happening within a large corporate company.
Very good atmosphere.
Unless you don't care about your black employees.
In fact, I practically lived there for 3 years trying to make the production work.
Were you aware, if you lived there, were you aware of such behavior?
I never saw it.
So you're saying that this is not true, it's not happening?
Well, I mean, there's over 20,000 people. So you say, like, if there's over 20,000 people in one building, well, is everyone going to behave perfectly? No. Did I see any situations that I thought were improper? I did not.
Let's talk about trans rights and the woke mind virus, because you talk about that a lot. You're right about that a lot on the thing. You have been deeply outspoken about the issue of trans rights. You posted trans rights. You posted that pronouns in bio mean the woke mind virus ate your brain. Do you know what the term woke actually means?
It's come to mean a lot of things.
But what originally it was meant to mean. It's just being aware of inequities in society and being aware of facts and history.
Yeah, I think it's come to be. I think being aware of inequities in society is fine, of course, but trying to blame everything on trying to make everything a race issue is, I think, divisive and corrosive to society.
Even as it relates to trans issues, which is what I'm.
Yeah, race or gender or whatever.
You think that society blames everything on racism now?
It blames a lot of things on it, and yeah.
You think that's unfair?
Yeah.
Why?
I think we should not make this a constant subject. I think we need to move on. I think we just treat people like people.
You don't agree that this country was founded on racism and founded on slavery and in many ways inequities? That still continue on to this day?
I think every country at that time, and I think even today, was extremely racist. Every country.
So
obviously, slavery was present in.
So it's widespread over the whole world, every country, but we just need to stop talking about it. It's not relevant.
About half of this country, and no, but was not.
We just need to move on.
Present in the north, there was racism for sure, but I think we want to look to the future rather than the past, and instead of engaging in constant rehashing of the past, because in fact, if you look at history, if you study history broadly, everyone was a slave. Everyone.
Yes. Well, not everyone was a slave.
No,
but
everyone was a slave.
Okay, but
we are all descended from slaves.
yeah, well,
All of us.
yeah.
It's just a question of when. Was it more recent or less?
I mean, there's probably some truth to that. But yeah, some people were slaves a lot more recently than we were.
Recent. That's it.
Right.
But what future do we want? Is this something we want to make a part of our constant dialogue forever, or do we want to say, like, let's just move on and treat everyone, according to just who they are as an individual?
I agree with you with that. That's the ideal. But what the evidence shows is that that's not what's actually in practice.
I think we're doing better than anywhere else.
That's true. I agree with that. But that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean a lot to a whole lot of people who aren't able to take advantage of the opportunities that you were able to take advantage of, simply because the color of your skin.
What advantages did my color of my skin give me?
Well, there's an ease that you have in society that many people of color don't. You were able to come to this country voluntarily. There are many people who were not able to come to the country voluntarily. There are people who came.
It's just crazy to me to just think about two people together, two different people. For one person to not be able to and not be willing to, and to scoff at the idea of listening to that other person's experience and what they go through in life because of their identity, because of parts about themselves that they didn't choose and they can't change. To not be able to listen to that and not be interested in listening to that, to not being empathetic or sensitive to that or sympathetic, and to tell them you need to move on. I don't want to keep talking about this. It's just mind-blowing to me to not at least be open to understanding or hearing or listening to. Is just so, it's just gross.
Came here as slaves,
for me to come here.
and there is a legacy of slavery that still continues on. There's a legacy of racism that still continues on in this country. That's undeniable.
Well, if we keep talking about it nonstop, it will never go away.
Such a dumb fuck talking point.
If we keep making that the central thing, it will never go away.
Why do you believe that?
I think I'm just making a simple statement of fact. So I think we want to get away from making everything a race or a gender or whatever issue, and just treat people like individuals.
Do you have any desire to understand what many people of color and even trans people, how they feel about this country and how they're treated in this country? If they say and they believe that they are treated a certain way,
like that's just not true. You're not interested in just treating people as individuals if you're not willing to listen to groups of individuals who are having common experiences, share those experiences, and share how they're being treated. If you're going to listen to that and tell them to shut the fuck up and stop talking about it, then you're not interested in treating people as individuals. That's just not the case.
in this country, why don't you believe them?
You cannot have a situation where someone is a self-described victim, and they just get to be that because that's how they feel.
I think that does happen in some cases, but not all cases. And I think that not understanding the history of the country, I think, is a real shame. Look,
We should understand the history of the country and other countries.
I've had incredible opportunities as a person of color.
Right.
But I've also
You're doing very well.
But I've also been discriminated against, and I know that I have. And I know that that's real. And for someone to say that that isn't happening, I should just move forward and not think about that and ignore the past, is insulting.
I'm not saying it. Don, you keep putting words in my mouth. I'm not saying it's
I didn't say that you said it.
I'm saying that we want to. We as a country should move beyond questions of race and gender, and we should treat people like individuals and base our opinions on them on the, their character and their skills.
I don't think that anyone will disagree with that.
Exactly.
All I'm saying is that that's not happening and is not equal for everyone. That those opportunities don't happen for everyone. And I am a living example that they don't. I know that they don't because I live it.
You've been incredibly successful.
I have been,
and
in spite of it all. But I know what I know. I've experienced what I've experienced. You haven't done that. And I cannot, I don't know what it's like to be from South Africa. I don't know what it's like to be a white man. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be a Latino person. I don't know that, so I wouldn't speak for them and just say, you need to move on. That's not for me to say. I believe that it would be great if the country could live up to that ideal. You think that everyone has the same opportunities in America, regardless of their background and ethnicity. Do you agree?
No, I don't think everyone has the same opportunities.
Okay. So when you talk about, let's talk about trans rights. When you decided to talk about the trans rights movement, you said that it was a woke mind virus. Why do you believe the trans rights movement is a woke mind virus? What do you mean by woke mind virus?
Woke mind virus is when you stop caring about people's skills and their integrity, and you start focusing instead on gender and race and other things that are different from that. I think the woke mind virus is fundamentally racist, fundamentally sexist, and fundamentally evil.
Okay.
And we've got a little bit more time, so you choose your question.
Okay, okay, thank you for that. But I would appreciate you answering these. I think it's important that we're doing this. I think it's important to the world to hear this, especially what's going on in our country. The reason I ask you, listen, there are a whole lot of things that people maybe have questions about when it comes to transgender people. Even people who are part of the LGBTQ plus community have questions about that. But if you are a free speech absolutist, right? And that is part of the First Amendment. Also, the freedom of expression falls under that First Amendment as well. So why can't people choose to identify with the gender that they feel comfortable with, or with use a pronoun? Isn't that part of freedom of expression?
I guess no. They can ask others to do whatever they feel. They can ask others to do anything. It's a different question whether they mandate that others do that thing.
Okay. Let's talk more about free speech and for advertisers, right? Because all this controversy, I believe, as you know, has made X less appealing to advertisers. About half of them have left the platform. You call advertisers that left X.com. You said they were oppressors. You've even gone as far as saying it publicly that they can go F themselves or go fuck themselves.
So it's a very short list of advertisers who are not coming back to the platform. And our advertising revenue is rising rapidly. And our subscription revenue is rising rapidly, and I feel very optimistic about the future of the X platform.
Okay. Listen, honestly, I'm not meaning to offend you. You're an intense person. Where does that intensity come from?
I was born that way.
He got the DEI question, the woke question, and then this on the advertisers got him very triggered. Very triggered. I'm kind of skipping some of it because it's a little bit boring, and he's talked about the advertising stuff before, but he was just totally shut down by the end of this.
And I had a tough childhood.
You did?
So, yeah.
How so?
Right, Walter Isaacson goes into it in the book, and we only have a couple minutes left, so
all right,
too long to describe. So the one or two questions I can do, and then we'll have to call it.
Okay, again, I don't mean to upset you. Why are you just...
No, I have a whole room full of people waiting to meet with me.
Okay.
So we're just going over time.
Okay, all right, I understand that. So when you talk about, you said you were born that way. Is that, did you think that the way that you see the world has to do with your relationship with anyone, perhaps your father or someone in your family?
I don't know if he like ran out of questions or what, but this was like, I think this might be the last question, maybe. Not a great last one. I don't know.
I think we're all affected by the people we grew up with. My aspiration is to do whatever it takes to extend consciousness into the future. That's my goal. To make life multiplanetary as part of extending consciousness into the future.
Have the past few years, and considering everything that's gone on, has it been difficult for you and your family life?
It's been okay.
So then, how do you see your legacy, Elon? How do you see how people see you in the...
First of all, I say that if I died knowing that I did what was right, or did my best to do what was right, And even if in the history books they said I did wrong, I would still feel okay about that. I care about the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. I think we should view civilization as tenuous, as fragile. If you do study history broadly, you'll see that there's a rise and fall to civilizations. They don't always go up. So we should do everything we possibly can to preserve and extend civilization as we know it.
Yeah.
And improve it. To become more enlightened over time. And we therefore want to address civilizational risks. We want to make sure that we don't have, for example, demographic collapse, which is the case in a lot of countries, just very low growth rate. We want to avoid civilizational risks. How do we extend, better understand?
Like, he's just ending here with all the talking points that he expects people to jerk him off over, and like makes him feel like a special little boy.
The nature of reality. Yeah. That's what I care about. That's my motivation.
I know you have to go. If you'll just give me, I'll do a rapid fire thing here. Is there anything that you would change about anything that you've done in your life, in the past or recently?
I've made many mistakes over the years. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and fix them, but I don't have a time machine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So that's it. And as Elon would say, you be the judge. Let me tell you something about this show. The conversation doesn't end just because the camera stops. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching The Don Lemon Show. Click on the image in the top right to subscribe to my channel, and the thumbnail in the bottom right to watch more content from my show. I'll see you next time.
I need like an old rotary phone to put right here on my desk. So yeah, they go give Don a follow. He's got 15K subscribers right now. Support this young man in his burgeoning YouTube career. I do want to read this article real quick from Futurism that he talked about this afterwards. Don Lemon says Elon Musk is the most delicate snowflake he's ever interviewed. I've interviewed many world leaders, presidents to convicts, and no one has been more sensitive or touchy than Elon Musk. Quote, Don Lemon. It's been roughly 5 days since news emerged that former CNN anchor Don Lemon's show on X, formerly Twitter, had been canceled by the network's owner, Elon Musk. So, to be clear from the beginning, this was not going to be like an exclusive X show. But I do think that Elon was going to kind of fund it and be like the primary host for it. And after this interview, he no longer decided to do that. Today, the hour-long interview was finally shared in its entirety on X, and it's tense. Quote, there were no restrictions on the interview that he willingly agreed to, end quote. Lemon wrote in a statement last week, quote, my questions were respectful and wide-ranging, covering everything from SpaceX to the presidential election, end quote. In what the New York Times called a, quote, testy interview, the pair were clearly at odds, with Musk appearing taken aback by Lemon's probing questions, particularly when it came to his drug habits. And as with many previous instances where Musk has been held to account, the grouchy CEO immediately resorted to taking pot shots. In a Friday tweet, Musk accused Lemon of being a, quote, pompous fool who spouts nonsense, but Lemon fired back in a Sunday interview with People, calling out the billionaire as thin-skinned. He said, I went into this with my eyes open. I've interviewed many world leaders, presidents to convicts, and no one has been more sensitive or touchy than Elon Musk. Lemon described Musk's snowflakey attitude ironic, since his shtick is now that everyone else is too sensitive in his interview with People. And during the interview and during other interviews, Musk constantly says he doesn't care what people write or say about him, he said. For someone who doesn't care about what people write or say about him, he sure does care about what people write or say about him. He's not used to being held to account. The second richest man in the world has made plenty of enemies in the past, from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos to Paris Hilton, using his social media network to hurl personal insults. Musk's tenuous connection to reality has also been on thin ice, with the billionaire resorting to furthering conspiracy theories and making outright racist remarks, while surrounding himself with far-right agitators on X. Quote, when I questioned him about things that he put out on social media, posted, or tweeted that weren't factual, it was very uncomfortable for him, Lemon told People, to the point where he and his team wanted to see the interview before it aired, which was a big capital N no. Lemon argued that Musk was naive for thinking he wasn't going to question Musk's infamously racist and anti-Semitic outbursts. In short, not a lot of love has been lost between the two, and that's likely going to stay that way for the foreseeable future. Once Musk makes a new personal enemy, things tend to stay that way, as Musk holds grudges like no other. Quote, I learned a lot about him, and I think he learned about me. Well, he could have, but I think it just went right over his head. When asked about the current state of their relationship, the former CNN host had a simple answer. Our business relationship is over, so I'll move on from there, he said. So yeah, not a whole lot like new on Musk there, but it is interesting to see new interviews as he kind of seems to be further going down this alt-right pipeline. It's very interesting.